Hello to you, friends. This is Dhamma on Air number 30, and there are 5 questions. But first, the normal intro. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha. It's a little windy today, but we stay outside. Clouds are hauling over the sky here up in the mountains, but no rain. The summer monsoon has just finished, so now good weather is on its way. So we stay outside. The first question number 85, goes like this. Venerable Sir, whenever I go, I always hear rude and offensive language. At home, at school, at the mall. Unfortunately, this rude and offensive language hangs on in my mind. And then my mind feels very dirty, bad, evil, and weak. How not to think in offensive language, although I do not say it verbally. It's good that the verbal activity doesn't come out the mouth. So this means that the karma is lower, the karmic effect is lower. Whether it's good or bad speech, if it doesn't come out of the mouth, the karmic effect will be lower. But internal repeating rude or offensive language and calling other people bad names and so on, this still is verbal activity. Any thinking in words and concepts, this regarded as verbal activity. And so we remember there are 3 doors the karma can come out of. They can come out of the mind just by thinking it, small karma. Coming out of the mouth or thinking it in verbal words as verbal activity, little bigger karmic response. And then coming out in action, giving or killing. Then the karmic effect, the karmic echo of probability is much larger. So thinking in bad words about others, about oneself, or about the world is bad verbal activity. It's not only bad mental activity, it is also bad verbal activity. So it's basically not right speech. It's not right speech to oneself to think in bad words. How to get around it? Yeah, one should know that any thinking or any action actually repeats itself because of habit. There's a habituation. If you do it this time, then you are more likely to do it at another later time also. And if you see other people do it, then you're also more prone to do it yourself. And that's why this bad language and also good language, good and bad doings, good and bad, they are kind of like infective in society. Behavioral patterns affect other beings and affects yourself also to repeat this same behavioral pattern later on, whether good or bad or neutral. So this one should know if one thinks bad thoughts or rude language in one's own mind, then one will have a tendency to repeat it. And the effect is, of course, on happiness. Not only now, but also later on when one repeats it. And one stores up little by little bad karma by thinking in these rude words. If one meeting it outside from others speaking at the home or at the school or at the mall or at the job, others speaks rude word, then one can use equanimity and say, okay, identify it. This is wrong speech. And then know that whatever beings do, that is their own karma. Whether good or bad, only they will feel the result of it. You don't need to participate in that, or getting messed up in it, or involved in it, or linked to it. If you do, then you will share, because you will repeat the same action, whether good or bad, you share the karmic response. So if it's bad, rude words, offensive words, then just know, this is wrong speech. And I will try to purify myself as wrong speech. And then feel pity or compassion towards those who use wrong speech. Because they will feel pain and regrets and remorse and suffering on account of that rude and offensive language. So one shouldn't internalize it, copycat it. What you meet out there of wrong, you should not take in here. and repeat here. Let it stay outside. And then feel compassion towards those who perform it. Don't feel anger. Don't feel anger. Not easy, but possible. Then just go through the fourfold definition of right speech. It's because this is good to know as a rule of thumb. What is right speech? There's 4 kinds of right speech. Avoiding all lying, pretending, and any false speech. That is right speech. Abstaining from any kind of divisive and splitting talk. What you hear over here, you go and say to them over there. What you hear from them over there, you go and tell over there. Blah, blah, blah. Gossiping about others, basically. It's divisive speech, because one divides those over here with those over there. Divisive speech. Splitting talk. 3, refraining from all aggressive and irritated scolding. Fire out the mouth speech. Don't let the fire out. Keep it in. And stealing of any idle and empty gossip. That is talk about something that is irrelevant. It's pointless talk. The characterization of noble speech. Eliminating any false speech, any noble friends dwells avoiding all lies. He's a true speaker, one to be relied upon, trustworthy, loyal, not a deceiver of the world. Abstaining from any malicious speech. He does not tell them there what he has heard here, or repeat here what he have heard there, harming those there. Thus he is a reconciling diplomat between those here and there. Stilling all quarrels. The noble friend is rejoicing in peace, loving peace, delighting in peace. One who defends peace. He abandons all harsh and aggressive speech. He refrains from it. He speaks whatever is blameless and pleasing to the ear, agreeable, touching the heart, elegant, eloquent, gratifying, and appealing to the many. Discarding idle and empty chatter. He speaks at the right time and only about what is correct, what is advantageous, and what is to the point. That is the Dhamma and talk on self-control. He's a speaker whose words are to be treasured and remembered. Timely, recent, well-defined, well-formulated, beneficial, and leading to the goal. That is right speech, said the Buddha. He also once noted that man is born with an axe in his own mouth, whereby he cuts himself down. And this is because it's so usual to see people lie. 5 times a day, say modern psychologists. Thereby they ruin their own future. They lie to themselves also. Then they believe in their own lies and then tell it to others. And thereby it's true. Man is born with an axe in his own mouth. Remember that. Axe in his own mouth. Then there's 10 advantageous subjects to speak about. The advantage of modesty, of having few wants. Talk on the bliss of contentment. Santutti. Talk on the joy of seclusion, of being alone, of withdrawing out of society, of the buzz, of the fuss, of the stress. Talk on the ease of disentanglement, not involving, entangling out of, being free, disentangling. The talk of energy of enthusiasm, getting the job done. Talk on the advantage of morality, avoiding all evil. Talk on the calm of concentration, purifying mind. Talk on the insight of understanding. Talk on the freedom of release. And talk on the direct knowledge and vision of the release. This is the 10 advantageous subjects. Then there are also a lot of disadvantageous, detrimental subjects. Pointless talk, according to the Buddha. Today, they are generally called news. And there are several most media outlets is living of this pointless talk. This talk on kings, robbers, ministers, armies, dangers, wars, foods, drinks, clothing, furniture, jewelry, cosmetics, relatives, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, countries, women, famous women, actresses, for example, or models, photo models, heroes, places, amusements, the dead, trifles, the origin of the world, the origin of the ocean, whether metaphysical things are so or not so, such is pointless talk, irrelevant, detrimental, empty of any advantage. This also goes for thinking then. So this just delineates where to go with the speech, where not to go with the speech, and also where to go with the internal speech, and where not to go with the internal speech. Stayed within right speech, a factor of the noble path. Noble Eightfold Path, right speech is a factor. Samavajja. I hope this answers the first question. Then comes the next question. I have read that venerable monks and nuns are not allowed to use or accept money, and that is against the monastic disciplinary rules, say obey. Please clarify this issue. Yes, this is a major controversial issue today, and it probably have been so always. The rule says the following. Monks are not allowed to accept gold or silver. That's the actual words. But cats are allowed. Here is the cat. The talking cat. There comes a talking dog. You are actually disturbing, guys. What about buzzing off? Huh? No? Anyway, but then there's this Mendaka allowance. This was a millionaire at the Buddha's time. He came in and he wanted to give 1,000 robes to the Sangha. And he went to Ananda, and then Ananda said he could not give 1,000 robes. By that time there was many monks, so there was many who needed robes. And then the Buddha, he allowed that Mendaka, who was a millionaire from far away, he could give the money to somebody. And then whenever the Sangha at Jetavana Monastery, they needed a robe, then Ananda, he could send a message to that steward. A new person in monastic society is a lay person who keeps the Sangha's money for them. This is a Mendaka allowance. So the Sangha doesn't, the monastic Sangha, the nuns and the monks, they don't keep the money themselves, but they're allowed to have a lay person who keep the money for themselves. And then whenever something is needed, robes, medicine, transportation, timber for the roof, cement or anything for the monasteries, or wages to helpers or workers who repair the monasteries or make toilets or whatever, then they can go to this steward and then get the money from him. And this also in generally works fine. But there are situations where it doesn't work. And there also, you can say, strictly speaking, it's not gold and silver. You're not allowed to accept gold and silver. But money today is not gold and silver. They're not made of gold or silver. And then can the steward, for example, be a bank? The bank is also a lay person. And what you do generally in practical purposes is to send a message or write a letter to the steward. I'll give so and so much to this and that person for this and that service or a delivery or whatever to the monastery. And so this is the same you do to your bank actually when you write a check. You write basically a letter to the bank, say giving this and that person to the owner of this check, to the person who has this check. Hey doggy doggy. Same thing with a credit card. When you send a credit card, you send an electronic message to a layperson, namely a bank, to pay a certain amount of money for a certain amount of service to a certain person. So I think personally, but there's many opinions about that the rule about the Mendaka allowance about a steward who can have the Sangha's funds for things, allowable things, they can be also banks. And this means that you're allowed to use a credit card and you're allowed to use checks. Then you can discuss whether you're allowed to use paper money, because paper money is basically also a letter. You give, there's not gold and silver, but you could go to the National Bank. Actually, the National Bank should have gold and silver, usually a gold, to the same amount that they make money, their money press. Huh? So there should be amount, so you can, in principle, go to the money bank and say, pay me out my amount of gold for this money bill. So it's also a kind of a letter. But I think most agree upon that gold and silver today, the rule about not accepting and using gold and silver today means money. But I don't think it goes for checks and for credit cards, because that is letters, because of this Mendaka allowance. Then there's some situation, and there's some situation where I also myself has changed my opinion after becoming a monastic myself and seeing the problems for myself. This is the problem of, what about if the steward, he steals the money? What you do? You're gonna go to the police, huh? Because that will be against compassion, be incompassion. Usually, and it happened for me, it happened for many other monks, it happened for many monastic society. Usually when the steward, who usually is a Buddhist, he volunteer to take care of the economy of a particular sangha or particular monk or nun. He doesn't, or she doesn't intend to steal. But then comes a situation where they come into economical problems. It can happen the first year, the second year, or the third year. And then they are tempted to take a loan. It's a secret loan because they don't say they take a loan. They just use the money for their private purposes, usually to repay the bank. They have a bank loan, then they cannot pay at the bank loan. Then they take the Sangha's money to repay their own private bank loan. Then the Sangha come and ask, we need money for a toilet or for repair of the roof. Can you pay that? Then they say, no, we cannot repay. And that's also have been a situation for me. I needed timber for the roof. And then the layperson has borrowed a fairly modest amount, something like $140, but could not repay them after 2 years or 3 years, 2.5 years. So he was aware, he was under pressure from his own banks, and then he could not resist taking the money. So I had to go somewhere else to look for my timber, to get it for somewhere else. So this is the situation. The text is very clear what happens with such a person. Yeah, what does it say? What we should do? We can go and ask for it 3 times. And then we can go and if they don't pay the timber or whatever is needed, then we can go and stand in front of their door 3 times more. That is 6 times we have. After that, it's game over. And you cannot do anything more. You don't go to the police. You just don't say anything and don't talk to the person in question. And you cannot have them as steward again. This has happened several times for me and also for many other monastic sanghas. What should you do about it? It's a sign that at present time it's difficult to find honest people that can be honest over several years. Or over many years. Local here, at least in Sri Lanka, but I think also abroad in many places. The text is very clear about what happened with lay people who steal from the Sangha. They go to hell, and then they go to, after that they become a hungry ghost for 756 million years. Now there's a time between 2 Buddhas. They have to wait, that's the maximal time, to wait until the next Buddha comes, before they can become human again. So that is exceedingly dangerous. Why is that so? It is because the Sangha is an infinite institution. It's not finite. If you steal from your mother, or from the company, or from the shop, then it's a finite institution you steal from. That the entity, the mirror that is mirroring back the probability, is a finite echo. But if you steal from the Sangha, you steal from an infinite institution. Then it's an infinite echo, or very large at least. So there is some problems. It shows us the dependency. I had another case also in myself for my person. It was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. My mother died, and I had to visit her in Denmark. And my father, he paid the air ticket so I could go to Denmark. But then from his place, he was very old, 88 years or 87 at that time. He couldn't drive or hadn't any car. And there was no one of the lay people there around at that situation, at that time, that could help me, bringing me to my mother, who was 500 kilometers away, out on a small island, where I had to take a ferry boat, 2 trains, a ferry boat and a bus. And then nobody could spare. It took 3 days going back and forth there to come out there and come back again. So the lay supporters there, my friends and family in there, they were busy with their lives. And they had their obligations with family and job and whatever. So they could not go with me. And then some years before, my mother has also invited me to come up there to visit her. And then I said, no, mother, I cannot come because I cannot pay I cannot use money, so I cannot pay for the bus ticket and the airfare, the ferry boat, or the train ticket. And I cannot get them to somebody to buy them in advance because the ferry I first can pay when I come there, up there, 500 kilometers from here. So I denied coming there, and she was, of course, very sad about that. Now, some years later, she was dying. Should I not go there? I think that was cruel, and I think that was absurd. And then I say, okay, I have to make an exception here. Here I have to take the situation in my own hand and stand responsible for it. I know it's kind of breaking the rule, but I have to go to my mother. Whether other lay people can take me there or not, I have to go up there and see my dying mother. And I went up there using money in my hand and in my pocket. I didn't have a purse. And then I went to my mother and stayed with her. And that I stand by. I stand by it. Even today, I stand by it. And also from the example of stealing from the lay people stealing from the Sangha, I think actually that the rules should be changed. We have tried to change them before. 2,000 years ago, there was a council, because one monk cannot change it. The Buddha said we can change the small rules. This is a small rule. We can't change them, but we have to decide upon it unanimously. All monks have to decide upon it. All Theravada monks have to decide upon it by a new council. Last time it was rejected. The question is whether we have reached a time where you cannot find honest lay people that can support the Sangha to the extent that the Sangha can depend upon it. So this is when one points the finger at the Sangha, at the monks and nuns, and say they are dirty monks and nuns because they use money, then one should think about oneself. Do I help in this situation? Because the monks and nuns has the exact same needs and dependencies. If you have a toothache, then you have to go to the dentist. How to come to the dentist? How to pay the dentist? If you need surgery in your knee or in your heart or wherever, you have to go to the hospital. The hospital might be 500 kilometers away. It's a situation for me, for example. So how to pay it? How to get there? Who wants you to follow it? So the monks and the monastic society can be as pure as their dependency with the lay people supports it, and not more than that. Not more than that. Then there's a situation with the dishonest lay people that you use as stewards for this Mendaka allowance. What to do when third time or fourth time you have taken in some lay people and they have done the job well for some years, but then they start stealing and cheating and committing fraud. Should you take a new one, or should you take the situation in your own hand? And that's a difficult choice, actually. I think most monks and nuns, they want to be pure, but it can be a difficult choice sometimes. It can be a difficult choice sometimes. Because there can be situations where you just have to do something. And being pragmatic and realistic, then it's very difficult to find completely honest people today to take care of this issue. Then I think it would be a better situation if the Sangha was allowed to take care of their own economy and be responsible for it. On the other hand, I have, as a young man, always thought that religion and money goes very bad hand in hand. One should separate the matter. Religion and money and economy should be separated. This was something I saw from a Christian point of view when I saw at the Vatican being an extremely rich state, which is the state of the Pope, which is supposed to be holy, but it's an extremely rich place with large swaths of land and so on. And so also I've been from monastic societies around the world that have owned a humongous amount of land and other valuables. And I think this is problematic. So there's two sides of it. If there's lay stewards who can handle the situation over several years and maybe ideally lifelong, then the monks in that area can stay dependent upon that when they have to go to the dentist or the doctor, or they need new shoes or whatever. Then it will work. But if it doesn't work out, then what? Then what to do about it? I hope that answer these questions. In short, monks are not allowed to use gold and silver, neither accept or use or sell. They are allowed to swap things with other in the monastic society who has in robe, that is novices and monks and nuns. And they are probably also allowed to underwrite checks and use credit cards. But they're not allowed to use cash. That is a golden middle way of looking at it. They're allowed to have a person who takes care of their money issues, so they can get whatever is allowable whenever it's needed. Question 87. What about when the Buddha told King Pasenadi his dreams? Wasn't he being a fortune teller or dependent upon astrology? And is that right livelihood for a monastic? I'll just explain a right livelihood for a monastic. It's neither living nor receiving food by astrology, soothsaying, predicting future events, nor by palmistry, geomancy, dream reading, charms and spells, amulets, fake divination, nor by any rituals, running errands and messages, political flatter, arranging marriages, funerals or divorces, medical practice, or by producing art or poetry, or by professional disputation or debate. That is right livelihood. And the fivefold right livelihood for lay people is not living involving any trading with living beings. That is animals for slaughter, or slaves, or sex prostitutes, or human trafficking, or something like that. Earning a living, not selling any meat, fish, or flesh. Earning a living not involving any selling of any form of weapons. Earning a living not involving dealing with alcohol or illegal drugs. And earning a living not involving any selling any form of poison. That's right livelihood for lay people. Answering the specific question, no. Because the Buddha, he didn't take any food for his services of telling the dreams to King Pasenadi. And when he talks about the 32 marks of a great man, then he's not being any kind of joined with dream reading or geomancy or palmistry or anything like that, because he doesn't take money for his services or food for his service. The wrong livelihood for anyone who tells about dreams is to say, you put up a sign, dream reading 5 cents, or dream reading 1 cup of food, or dream reading 1 cup of coffee, so that you take a price for your service. This you're not allowed to do. That will be wrong livelihood. We say, what will cause us a price? That there will be it can be money, but that's illegal, but because it could also be food or services, or any kind of exchange of valuables. That is not allowed. But you can tell people about their dreams. You can tell them about what signs on their body means. That's allowed, as long as you don't expect or say or express any wish of having anything in return. That's a livelihood. So there's the differences. Question B, stream entry. How hard is it to attain stream entry in the 21st century? And see, are there many Arhats in the world today, or is it now difficult to achieve this state of liberation? Let's take are there any Arhats in the world today? I don't know. I have to be honest, I don't know. Why not? Because I'm not an Arhat myself. That is to say, when I go around in the world, I've not seen all people. So I haven't evaluated whether they are enlightened or not. But even if they were, I would not be able to recognize this, because I don't have this stage myself. So you can only recognize your own state, up to your own state. That is to say, a stream entrant cannot recognize a once returner, a no returner, an Arhat. Only an Arhat can recognize another Arhat. So you don't. There's a funny story about that. It was a dwarf, an ugly dwarf, not very high, looking like a fool or like a clown. And he was enlightened, that particular person. And he was also very modest. And the other monks, they make jokes about him and clapped him on the head and say, small monk, blah, blah, blah. He walked, when they walked for Pindabat in a long row, then this dwarf, he always went in the back of the row. While actually he was the most noble, he should go first. But he took this situation. As an Arhat, he just walked. He didn't say anything. He didn't say much. But since, out of compassion for the monks, the Buddha, he saw that many was falling down on this, disregarding this Arhat. He told them so. That don't clap him on the head, don't make jokes about this person. Because despite his outer signs of being a dwarf, an ugly dwarf, he's an awakened being. That says something about one cannot recognize who is who. The noble can be very difficult to recognize, and they don't tell about it themselves. That's their modesty, that they don't tell about it themselves. So one doesn't know who's who. As the Buddha said, be careful. You don't know who is who. Who is evil? Who's bad? Who's good? Who's true? Who's noble? Who's the devil? You don't know. You don't know. Then, can it be attained stream entry and in the 21st century? Yes, it can indeed. It can at all times where the Dhamma is available. Can one also become enlightened in the 21st century? Yes, indeed, one can. But one has to provide the cause of it. How difficult is it? Yeah, I will ask you the same question here. I will read up the requirements and the helpers and the links to stream entry. And then you can evaluate for yourself how difficult it is for you. So it depends upon this person, of course. How difficult it is to them. It depends upon their set of mental defilements and their degree of attention, wisdom, understanding, energy, enthusiasm, effort, and so forth. So is it possible? Yes. How difficult it is depends upon the person, of course. Huh? Once in Savatthi, the blessed Buddha said that there are 4 factors of stream entry. What 4? Association with excellent persons, Mahapurisa, is a stepping stone for stream entry. Hearing the true Dhamma, just as you do now, is a stepping stone for stream entry. Careful and rational attention, Yuniso Manasikara, is a stepping stone for stream entry. Praxis in agreement with the Dhamma, praxis and behavior and action in agreement with the Dhamma, conforming with the Dhamma, in harmony with the Dhamma, is a stepping stone for stream entry. These 4 factors of stream entry does any noble possess. There are 4 links to stream entry. Here a householder or the noble disciple possess confirmed confidence and conviction in the Buddha in exactly this way. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened is the Buddha, consummated in knowledge and behavior, all transcended, expert in all dimensions, knower of all worlds, unsurpassable trainer of those who can be tamed, teacher and guide of both gods and humans. Blessed, exalted, and awakened and enlightened is the Buddha. Confirmed confidence in the 3 jewels. This is confirmed confidence in the Buddha. He possessed confirmed confidence in the Dhamma in exactly this way. Perfectly formulated is this Buddha Dhamma. Visible right here and now. Immediately effective. Timeless. Inviting each and every one to come and see for themselves. Expect, examine and verify. Leading each and every one through progress towards perfection. Directly observable, experienceable, and realizable by each intelligence. That is confirmed confidence in the Dhamma. He also possessed confirmed confidence in the noble Sangha, Arya Sangha, in this way. Perfectly training is this noble Sangha community of the nobles, Buddha's disciple. Training the right way, the true way, the good way, the direct way. Therefore do these 8 kind of individuals, the 4 noble pairs, deserve both gifts, self-sacrifice, offerings, hospitality, and reverential salutation with joint palms. Since this noble Sangha community of the Buddhist disciples is an unsurpassable and forever unsurpassed field of merit, of probability, of karmic echo, in this world, for this world, to honor, protect, respect, and support. This was the 3. Confirmed confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. What's the 4th? He also possessed the pure morality esteemed by the noble ones in this way. Unbroken, untorn, unspotted, unmottled, freeing, praised by the wise, natural, leading to mental concentration, to absorption. These are the 4 links to streamity that any noble disciple possesses. And you can evaluate for yourself, is there any missing points in your mental continuum, in your consciousness? And if so, what's the missing point? What's the missing point? Then work on that. Then he furthermore said there's 6 keys to stream entry. Once in Savatthi, the blessed Buddha explained the 6 keys. Because a noble disciple who possesses 4 things is a stream enterer, no longer bound to the lower worlds, fixed in destiny, with enlightenment as his sure destination, with only 7 rebirths left. Well established are these 4 factors of stream entry. And he should then develop these things further, these 6 things that contribute to true knowledge. 1. He should dwell observing the impermanence of all phenomena. The impermanence, anicca. 1. He should dwell experiencing the suffering in all that is impermanent. Dukkha. First noble truth. This is dukkha. All this is dukkha. All this is suffering. 3. He should dwell experiencing the impersonality of all that is suffering. Anatta, the impersonality. There's no self aspect. No self, no substance aspect. He should dwell experiencing the gradual withdrawal by relinquishment. Withdrawal. Disentangling. Detaching. He should dwell experiencing the fading away of desire by disillusion, the fading away of craving, of desire, of lust, of greed. As in, he should experience the peaceful ceasing of all craving. It is exactly this way that you should train yourself. 4 factors, 4 links, 6 keys. Possible? Yes. Easy? No. Difficult? Yes. Not so easy, but possible. I hope this answers these questions. Question 88. I remember that I forgot to pay $5 for a locker hire at a previous high school. I emailed the high school to pay back the 5% I promised to pay at the time. They say, thank you very much, but you don't need to pay. Good high school. Venerable monk, would you call this situation an act of stealing? No. Since you at all time wish to escape paying for the locker room. You just forgot it. So there was no intention to misappropriate the $5 you haven't paid. But however, there was an act of forgetfulness and neglect. And that is blameless. That is blameful. So it was not an act of stealing, misappropriation of value. It was an act of forgetfulness and thereby neglect. Where does forgetfulness come from? It comes from lack of awareness, mindfulness, lack of sati. So one should train that. So sati, awareness, and mindfulness means that awareness of the present, one thing, then remembrance of what happened long time ago, including that you didn't pay for your locker room. Or what happened 10 lives ago. What happened at your childhood. Remembering that. That's awareness, right awareness. So there was no stealing there, but there was neglect. Question 89. How to avert one's attention to the non-local aspect of consciousness? And that's a very good question. Actually, one can go into contemporary physics and then just think about the particle-like aspect of all quanta of energy, including light, but actually all atoms, all nuclear elements, all particles, they have these 2 complementary aspects. They have a particle-like aspect which is local. And then they at the same time has a wave-like aspect, which is a field. For example, the light now shining on me, it can be in one way seen as a bombardment of small particles that has no weight called photons. They have a particular position, and if they impinge on a photographic plate, then they are only there on the photographic plate, exactly there. They are not all there and they are there also at the same time. They are exactly there. So there the aspect is local. But when they at the same time have an aspect that is as local as the distance from here, where they impinge and are being absorbed on my head, and then the sun. So they have also at the same time has a very non-local aspect. This goes for all quanta of energy, all kinds of matter. It does not matter which kind of matter you take, which kind of positrons, neutrons. You can even take large molecules as phthalocyanate. It's a molecule, organic molecule, at the size of human insulin. And then this also displays this diffraction pattern when you put it in the two-state experiment. If you bombard it up onto a screen. And this means that you cannot say which slit it goes through. Same thing with the photon or the electron. You cannot say which slits it goes through both slits and neither slits, and it's not go with one slit, it doesn't go through the other slit, it doesn't go to both slits, it doesn't go to neither slits. And that's really the point of quantum mechanics, is to solve this conundrum, this dualistic nature that is very interesting, that says that all things, including consciousness, which is a form of information and thereby an equivalent of energy, because energy is an equivalent of information, and mass is like a mass also is an equivalent of energy. So everything is energy. So anything is quanta, anything is quantized, comes in small packets, and all these packets, wherever we look, has this dualistic aspect. That is, has a local aspect, it's particle-like, and then it has a field aspect that is wave-like, that has a frequency. You can think about fields like an electromagnetic field. A magnetic field is non-local, is not only one particular place. A field of gravity now is also non-local. It's all over the planet, and it's actually all over the universe. There's some form of gravity. Electromagnetic field also is a field of light. So a field is something that is inherently non-local. And since we can conclude unambiguously, since consciousness also is a form of energy, then it must have this non-local aspect, as indeed everything else has. As indeed everything else has. So this goes for gravity, it goes like electromagnetic fields, like X-rays, radio waves, gamma rays, anything else. They are fields, but they also have a particle-like aspect. In the case of gamma rays, light, radio waves, it's all electromagnetic radiation. It actually is an undulation of two fields, of an electric field and a magnetic field that induce each other. So an undulation or an oscillation of these two fields, which is something that is in the space, this undulation of two fields in two particular directions, this is the wave-like aspect. It's everywhere present instantaneously. Then there's a particle-like aspect. It has a location, it has a speed, and it has a direction. And it cannot be destructed, this particle-like aspect. It cannot be split up in two. So this is just these two concepts. They go against each other. How can something be at a specific place and then also be non-local at the same time? But this is what nature tells us, that we have to accept. It's maybe an error, not of nature, but of our logic. That we think that if things are at a particular place, then they cannot at the same time also be everywhere. But that's actually the case. It's called non-locality, or entanglement in contemporary quantum mechanics. Taking it one step further, locality, the concept of locality has included in it, immanently in it, the concept of space. And the concept of space has been, by Einstein, by first special relativity and then general relativity, been transformed, which is experimentally verified, into a concept that is called space-time. This is supposed to be continuous space-time. That is not quantized. It was a concept he took over from a mathematician called Riemann. But Riemann himself, he said that if you think about space-time as being continuous, or space as being continuous, then the metric that you can measure it in length and angles and volumes, it doesn't come out of this continuous space itself. You have to apply the metric from somewhere else. But if you have a discrete space, where there is a minimum length, a minimum packet of length actually, then the metric that you can measure angles, distances, volumes, and so forth, it comes out naturally from the geometry itself, the concept itself of discrete space. One concept or one school of unifying special general relativity, which is says that basically that gravity is a bending of space-time, a curvature of space-time. And this gravity, which we know experimentally is correct, doesn't go well with quantum mechanics. So joining these two is a research field today called quantum gravity. And one school within this quantum gravity, a rather esoteric school, they say the following, is that space-time is not continuous, it's discrete. It's called causal sets theory. Causal sets, corsets in brevity. Corsets. And this is a very interesting thing. It says space itself is not made out of space. It's made out of small packets, not space itself, for space-time. It's made out of discrete packets. And these packets are called causal sets. And what is causal set is just what comes before each other. What causes what? Only this. If you have this, if you know these conditional relations, as the Buddhists say, then you suddenly have space-time. It points to a very interesting situation where space-time itself, which is defined by 10 numbers in Einstein theory, and the 9 numbers you can derive directly from the way light traverses the space-time. And then you only have to induce the volume, and that is in space-time done by counting. So if you know the volume, and if you know how light do, then you know all these 10 numbers of space-time. That's an interesting feature, because if you have a discrete space-time, then the counting goes by itself. Because there can only be one Shorter's packet, so you just take the amount of space-time, then you count 1, 2, 3, 4. And so there's a finite amount of blocks of space-time in one block of space-time. That's a finite amount. While in continuous space-time, that's an infinite amount. Because you can always subdivide any distance. You can say, you can cut into 2, then you cut that into 2, you can cut that into 2. You can always cut and get a smaller amount. So it's not discrete, it's continuous. So there you cannot count them. You run into, if you want to count the elements of space-time, you run into the problem of infinitude, that you have to count the infinite. Because there's infinite many points, mathematical point, in any block of space-time. However small we might make it, there's still an infinite number of points there in this small volume of space-time. But if it's discrete, then it's not the case. Then there is a finite amount of blocks in any amount of space-time. And what the physicist says, one school admittedly, they say that what is this space-time made of? It's made up of causal relations, causal sets. That's what the Buddha says is conditional relation. The last book of which is 24, the last book of the Abhidhamma. So it looks like a very interesting convergence on a very, very basic level of what space-time is, really. And thereby also why it's non-local, why it appears to be distant, but still it's affecting each other instantaneously. Einstein have also been talking about this discrete space-time as a possibility, but he said he could not even imagine how to draw a trajectory, a kind of line through this space-time. Like we have difficulties, because space-time is not only space, it's space and time. So a history is a line in space-time. There's only lines. So actually, nothing goes on in there, in this block of space-time. It cannot be envisioned, cannot be drawn, because there's 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z for space, and then 4th dimension also added. But how to envision this 4th dimension also? If you stack it up, then it can be somehow look like a block that is stacked upon each other, like stamps on each other. And then the actions that are going through is a line through these. So your world line, which such a line is called, is now meeting my world line here on through this. So we are interacting with 2 world lines in space-time. And what one school of contemporary physics says is that if we want to unify the best physical theories which we have today, namely general relativity and quantum mechanics, into quantum gravity, then one way of doing it, possible way of doing it, is saying that time and space is discrete, and that these small blocks called corsets actually only is causal relations. They come to appear, for consciousness in particular, like a space-time, like a space and a time, 2 separate entities. But deep down, they might just be causal relations that we perceive as space-time. It doesn't make space-time into an illusion. It just makes space-time into something else than we think it is. That is spatial, that is roomy. That's a scene that is playing out. This that space-time is discrete and made out of block of causal sets, corsets. This means that space-time is not only the scene, it's also an actor that participates in the act of forming this world line, this drama, these apparent actions. This is some of the thoughts I entertain today, to say, what is it? If we just go through special relativity, come from 1905, Einstein, and then general relativity, if we back up, we can see already there that the normal naive reality view of space and time as absolute blocks, for example, that time goes the same wherever you are in the universe, the time goes with the same speed. This is not the truth. Because if you move 2 reference frames, Einstein said, then if you are in one reference frame and observe the other reference frame, then the time will go slower in that reference frame. This we don't perceive because it's very little, but nevertheless it is so. It is so. Einstein, he explained it very neatly with an example of simultaneity, that you cannot say that there's 2 things at the exact same time, that this makes sense to say that there's simultaneity. This is Bob and Alice, they are 2 physicists. Alice, she stands on a train station, and Bob, he comes running in a train. And when he sits in the middle of the train, and exactly where the train is right out of Alice's place, where she can look Bob into the eyes, he sits inside the train. There's 2 lightnings coming down into one of each end of the train. And they crash down exactly at the same time. So Alice, she's standing in the middle. She sees the light approaching her with the speed of light. She sees the 2 light flashes at the exact same time. So Bob, he's moving in that direction. He sees first this light, and then he sees the other light. So they talk about it. They make these exact correct observations, both of them. Then Alice and Bob, they meet afterwards. Then they say, Alice says to Bob, I saw 2 lightnings banging down in your train, in the end of the train, your train, just as it passed the train station. And it was right at the exact time. Then Bob says, no. First, it's true there was 2 lightning, but first it was in the fore part of the train, and then the back part of the train, there was another lightning. It came a little later. So they cannot agree upon simultaneity, that things happen at the same time. And there you see time collapses, absolute time collapses. You can by yourself see this is true. It doesn't make sense that things happen at the same time. It depends whether you move, the observer moves or not, according to the reference frame he's observing in or talking from. The same goes with, you can experimentally verify that with taking a radioactive particle and then accelerate it in a circular accelerator. Then you can see the radioactive particle, it decays slower. So it decays simply slower inside the accelerator. If you decelerate it again, then it decays with normal speed. So it experiences time slower when it moves around very rapidly. When it comes out, it experiences time going with the normal speed. Same thing with space. The quicker they go, the more the train becomes shorter. So if Alice measures the length of the train, then the quicker it goes, the shorter it becomes until it collapses to a surface. Again, it depends upon the movement. In this case, in special relativity, the linear movement between the two reference frames. And in general relativity, whether there's a acceleration, circular acceleration, or whether there's a field of gravity also there. So already there in special relativity in 1905, you see that the simultaneity, the time, the constant time, the time is going at the same speed everywhere. And that it makes sense to talk about things happening at the same time. This concept collapses. So it must be somehow some kind of an illusion to us because we experience that so. Even though the changes in time is very small. But it's just to be noted that both time and space are like harmonicas. They can be very small and then very long. They don't have any particular magnitude or size. It depends upon the observer. This is both from Buddhist point of view and from point of view of special relativity of Albert Einstein, which is from 1905. I think this is enough for today. Discrete consciousness, discrete space-time, causal sets, 58 minutes and 1 second. And the wind is coming. Namo, Tasso, Bhagavato, Arahato, Samma Sambuddhassa. Thank you for your attention. And may you indeed have a nice day. One more thing, hang on. Remember to click subscribe down in the right corner or left corner. Our right corner must be right for you. Down there is a small red sign, click subscribe. So you're informed and can hang on. In the future too.
You heard Bhikkhu Samahita from the Cypress Hermitage on the Knuckles Mountain, Bambarella, Central Hill Country, Sri Lanka. Please subscribe to the Google group Buddha Direct and visit the website whatbuddhasaid.net. May all beings become thus happy thereby. Thank you. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha.